So today, ladies and gentlemen, we are taking on the extra spicy challenge of ranking every single POI in Fortnite from worst to best. Since the original Tilted Towers update of Season 2, the Fortnite map has been constantly changing and evolving, and with that, it's actually brought 57 different points of interest. 57 different locations to drop, and in today's video, we will be ranking every single one, named, unnamed, and removed from the game from worst to best. Also, if you guys are new to the channel, please subscribe or leave a like. That would be most appreciated. Now let's get into it. All right, coming in at the lowest spots on our list, at number 57, we have Soph D's. More like both D's. Nuts.
Got him!
I'm not really sure if that's supposed to be some sort of weak Ligma joke or not, but regardless, it's a pretty bad spot to drop. Originally just the unnamed diner next to Paradise Palms, this evolved, I think season 7 or 8, into Soph D's, and is just still a really bad diner. It's got like 1 or maybe 2 chests, and that's about it. It's almost, but just not quite as bad as its name. Now moving on to our number 56 spot, I didn't even really know that this was considered a POI, or point of interest, by Epic Games, but it is the hot springs north of Lazy Lagoon. It's the place with the wooden fishy boy, and like 2 small buildings. It's a really bad dropping location to begin with, and with the removal of the vents in Season 10, there's really just no point to ever go back here unless you're really digging deep for that gold scar. Now moving on to our number 55 spot, we actually have the Frozen Meteor. The Frozen Meteor is, well, I don't know why anyone would really drop here. It's not really like I want to hate on this spot, as it's not trying to be, you know, the next Tilted Towers, but objectively it's bad. I mean, you've got like 1, maybe 2 chests here, and that's about it. It's a POI like the size of 4 minivans. That's it. The only 2 good things I have to say about it really is just that 1, it's cool, and 2, at least you can kind of get a nice movement from it, or rotation, after you land there to somewhere else. You know, to go actually find some actual loot. Now, moving on to our 54 spot, we're about to drop some nostalgia into your video. This is the OG Racetrack. The OG Racetrack. Honestly, like, terrible, but really brings me back. Now, this actually only got removed in Season 4, but at the end of the day, was a pretty bad spot. It was really out of the way and just didn't have a lot of anything. 1 little sort of platform that had like a couple chests, if you were lucky, and then a house, and that was it. And even despite all that, dang, I really do get a little nostalgic for this guy. Wasn't the best of spots, but, you know, it was one of the originals. Now up next, we have the Volcano. I hadn't really considered that the Volcano was a official POI by Epic Games, but it actually does make sense. When you drop down, there were a few chests in the center, but not enough to really be worth dropping to. And on top of that, the weird air vents over the lava made it kind of hard sometimes to loot things. Like, I definitely lost a gold scar or a gold shotgun or something in there, as I recall. So it really just wasn't like the best place to go looting. The Volcano vent was nice, but I gotta say, you know, Pressure Plant did it better. Now moving on to 52, we have the gas station in the desert biome just near the Puebla Villages. This is a spot. Honestly, like, I don't really know. This is just a spot. That's it. It's a spot. Moving on to number 51, we have the Depot Racetrack. Now you may be wondering, Patrick, what is the Depot Racetrack? Well, you know that little building that's a whole lot like Junk Junction, just next to Junk Junction? That is the Depot Racetrack. I never actually knew the official name for this place until I did the research on this video, and it turns out that it is not in fact part of Junk Junction, but its own separate point of interest. Oh, and it's pretty bad. Anyways, so topping out our number 50 spot, we've got the RV park. Really not a very good spot at all. The RV park is something worth going through, as there are a few chests and a few drops and a few ammo chests, but you know, it's not really going to be enough loot for anything more than 1 person. Now moving on from here, we have the Chair. According to Epic though, the official name of this place, the Chair, where in the snow biome next to the old factories and kind of close to Polar Peak, is called Outskirts. Honestly, I never really knew, and I never really cared This place had maybe max 3 chests, and was actually fairly good to rotate out of the snow biome too, but was obviously never a hot drop. Now next up on our list we have the Villain Lair. Now, as far as loot goes, the Villain Lair wasn't so bad, but it definitely was lacking in, The Villain Lair, in my opinion, was just a hard place to loot. It wasn't really good enough that it was worthwhile to go there on your first drop. Maybe in a solo game, but even then it was like debatable, and it was quite hard to navigate through. But what's worse is getting up there, just use so many materials. So bad spot, worst to get to, and really just never had much love for the villain base. Now 47, we have the first named location on this list. You ready for it? It's Tomato Town. Tomato Town is just unanimously the worst named location to ever exist in Fortnite. Now, if you want to consider those houses next to it to be part of it, I guess maybe it has a grand total of like 4 chests, 1 in each house. And if you're lucky, I think you can get 2 in the tomato building pizza pit. But Tomato Town itself was a garbage drop. 3 tiny little gas station type like convenience store buildings and the pizza pit. And that was it. Yet, for some reason, everybody always wanted to drop there. And actually, interestingly enough, in the initial Fortnite launch, Tomato Town wasn't named. And in my opinion, it really should have just stayed that way. Now moving on to number 46, this is going to be Frozen Greasy Grove. Ah yes, Frozen Greasy Grove. Like Greasy Grove, but worse. Much worse. Now 45, we have the junkyard in the desert biome. Ah yes, the junkyard in the desert biome. Like Junk Junction, but worse. And at number 44, we have Tomato Temple. Ah yes, Tomato Temple. Like Tomato Town, well, honestly, yeah, about just as bad as Tomato Town. Now 43, we've got Sunny Steps. It may be a sunny place, but I'll tell you, their loot is not shining. For a place as big as Sunny Steps, I always expect to walk out of there with more loot than I do. And not a lot of people drop there, which also makes it very not fun to drop. But the thing that has made Sunny Steps so bad is, again, the removal of vents. Those were a very nice feature. And Epic decided to take them out for who knows why. And now, Sunny Steps is just useless. You drop there, you get bad loot, you get no kills, and you got a hike to take to get to the nearest town. Now 42, we have Haunted Hills with Castle. Now I'm never sure whether to classify the castle as its own separate point of interest, but as it's so similar to Haunted Hills, I'm gonna choose to include it. I mean, and really it doesn't do a lot of good for Haunted Hills. When it came to northwestern points of interest, Haunted Hills was always second best to Junk Junction. A decent rotating place, but certainly not a spot you want to drop first go. Bad loot, fairly out of the way, and it's pretty hard to get up to that castle if you don't land there right away, which, trust me, don't. All right, now moving on to number 41 spot, we've got the updated version of the Racetrack in the desert biome from Season 5. Much better than the original Racetrack, but still not a place I would ever land. Also, for the 1% of people that still don't know this, and I can blow their mind, if you look at it sideways, it says Gus. Yeah, okay, everybody knew that. Never mind. Topping out our 40 spot, ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be Junk Junction. Yes, Junk Junction. Oh, wait, no, never mind. That joke's getting old. Junk Junction, slightly better than Haunted Hills, but still really not all that good. Now, coming in at number 39, we've got one of the OG locations of Fortnite, the Container Yard. Reasonable to drop here by yourself and expect to have decent loot with very little mats. In a duo, you're pushing it, and in squads, what the heck are you doing? The Container Yard made for some fun final circles and was also a decent spot to rotate to from other locations, but overall, kind of poo-poo. Just kind of though, just a little bit poo-poo. Anyways, moving on to number 38, this is going to be Flush Factory. When Flush Factory existed, there wasn't a ton of mobility in the game, and for this reason, really just wasn't worth going to. There just wasn't enough loot that ever made me want to take that trek from that north or southwestern point of the map to like anywheres. It wasn't a terrible spot and certainly not the worst spot in the game, but that location just really hurt. Now coming in at number 37, we've got the Snow Biome warehouse or factory. You know, the place that's a literal clone of OG factories. This place is actually pretty good. You can land here with 4 people and actually expect to go out with some decent loot. Not the best location, for sure, but I liked it. Now, it did get a little bit worse with the snow update, getting all wrecked and stuff, which was unfortunate, but at the time, it was a pretty good spot. But coming in at number 36, we've got a spot that I am forever going to be a huge fan of, which were the Castle Ruins. That spot just north of Pleasant Park back in the day. It got replaced by the open stadium, and no one ever really knew what to call it. Dude, that was a sweet spot. It had very decent loot, was close to a major POI, and really could be good for even almost up to squads if you really wanted to get spicy with it. Now coming in at our number 35 spot, this is going to be the Motel. A similar area, but in my opinion, just slightly better than the Broken Castle. The Motel honestly had really good loot for what it was, and on top of that had rifts, so it was easy to rotate out of there once you were done if that was your initial dropping point. That's a spot that I'm actually quite sad about getting removed. Also, as a side note, since we're kind of on the topic, the block is not going to be on this video just because it's constantly changing and non-static, so it would have been hard to rank that. Coming in number 34, we have Lazy Lagoon. I don't know why, but I've just never liked Lazy Lagoon. At number 33, we have Snobby Shores. Again, I don't know why, but I think a lot of the community is with me on this one. Snobby Shores is just not that great. Decent loot, yes, kind of far, but not too far. I think really the biggest issue with this place is just the fact that no one else drops there. I want to get some early game kills, you know, get the ball rolling. Now, number 32, we have Lonely Lodge. Another place that I just don't really like. Don't hate it, and I would seriously drop there, you know, given the opportunity if I need to, but I don't want to. We're starting to get into the range of locations that you could expect to drop 100% in solos and be fine. Squads, probably not so much, and overall, they're just mediocre places, you can tell. At 31, we've got the Mansion. Ooh, the Mansion. The Mansion was actually pretty good, especially for an unnamed spot. I think a duo drop there would just make it really fine, and you know, again, considering it was unnamed, good spot. And topping out number 30, we have the Viking Outpost. This is the Viking Hill. Surprisingly quite loved. I think people are going to be upset with this one, as I know a lot of people really like the Viking Outpost, but in my opinion, it's a little overrated. Not a lot of loot, but the thing that does make it great are the rifts. Coming in at number 29, we have the stadium. The stadium next to Tilted Towers, the one that just got removed. This was, again, another actually quite solid drop. I think this is something you could almost get away with dropping in as a squad and maybe not have the best loot, but be like decently kitted up. The stadium is something I'm kind of sad to see go because it was a nice spot I always enjoyed rolling through, and it has been in the game since, you know, season 2, but it's getting 29. Now, number 28, we have Shifty Shafts. Now, Shifty Shafts is definitely a love or hate place, and the reason is just due to the sort of play style that it creates. I like Shifty Shafts. It gives the user a unique sense of play style that is very different from almost any other location in the game. It's tight, close quarters, and you really can't rely on building, so you gotta just be smart and accurate. And on top of that, it's got good location and honestly fairly good loot. Coming in at number 27, we've got everyone's classic favorite that's not really that good, Moistemire. OG Moistemire was really good for getting materials, but really far from everything and really didn't have that good loot. When it got updated with the film set, it became much better for loots, maintaining the great material harvesting, and the map kind of started, you know, getting smaller due to vehicles. So it got better, but it was never a great dropping spot. At 26, we have Polar Peak. I'm choosing to rank Polar Peak at its best and not how it currently is, simply just because it got done kind of dirty. When I was talking about the mansion, I wasn't looking at the mansion as it currently is because it's literally like not even a dropping point. So I want to give the same slack to Polar Peak. At its peak, when Polar Peak was at its tippy top, When Polar Peak was standing high above what it is today, it was actually a pretty good spot. Lots of loot. That's really what it had going for. You're not gonna walk out there with 999 wood, maybe stone if you're an animal, but lots of loot. It even had that giant friggin' sword thingy. You guys remember that? Yeah, I wasn't a fan, but it had that. Topping out at number 25 spot, ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be Lucky Landing. Lucky Landing seems far away from everything, but it's close enough to Fatal, which is close enough to Salty, which is basically the center of the map, that it never feels like too bad of a trek. It's got very average loot. Nothing bad, but you can get 4 people in there with semi-decent materials and walk away feeling like, you know, I got a chance at this game. Can continue through and go to your spot, and Lucky is just an overall pretty fine spot. 24, we've got another throwback to some previous seasons. This is the open soccer stadium. Much better in loot than the other soccer stadium, and just actually also pretty good location. It was fun to drop here and then go down to Pleasant after everyone had just had a giant war. And on top of that, I don't know, it was just cool. I don't know why they took it out so quickly. It was the shortest living spot to ever exist in the game. Coming in at 23, ladies and gentlemen, it's your prison. That spot that we all miss and love. Good old OG prison. Prison, I think, is very comparable to Moistemire, as they were in the same location of the map. But whereas Moistemire was on the very outside of the map, the prison was just close enough to the outskirts of the map that it felt like you weren't in the middle of nowheres, I guess. You were close enough for it to move on to like Fatal Fields, you know, which isn't too far away from everything. But also prison actually had pretty good loot. Now moving on to 22, we have Frosty Flights, one of the most done dirty spots in the game. So the purpose of Frosty Flights was to be a spot where planes would spawn, and then after planes got removed, ballers. But now that there are no either of those two things in the game, Frosty Flights feels pretty useless. It's just so far away from everything, and while it does have really good loot, I can't put it any higher than that just for the fact that it's in a bad spot. Chuck Frosty Flights in the middle of the map or bring ballers back, I would probably rank it a little bit higher, but it's just really not a spot worth dropping anymore. Now at 21, we have NeoTied. This is a placement that I think some people are going to say is far too high for it, and some people are going to say is far too low. I've got an entire 15-minute video on why I hate NeoTied, so boom. But in a nutshell, it's just so much worse than Tilted. That's it. Also, I'm choosing not to include Tilted Town on this list because I feel like the lack of building makes it a very difficult placement. But in my personal opinion, I would also throw it in somewhere around here. It's good and it's fun, but no building just makes it a real challenge to rank. Anyways, topping off our number 20 spot, it's that place that we all really wanted to come back until we realized that it had one of the most garbage loot pools in the entire game. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. It's Dusty Depot. One of the best locations in the entire game. You have to give it that. Right smack dab in the middle of the map. You can go to retail, you can go to Salty, you can go literally just anywhere you want, but don't expect to have any loot. I think there's a total of maybe 3 chests, if that's right. 1 in each, like, that's really bad. There's, you know, some more loot on top and around the place and stuff, but the only thing that Dusty really has going for it, again, is just its location. Now, number 19, placed much higher than Moistemire, we have Wailing Woods. I feel like these were always the two, like, oh, are you a Wailing guy or a Moisty guy? But Wailing, after it got its upgrades, was actually pretty good. Obviously, amazing for getting materials, but the other thing was just the fact that it had a lot of loot down in the bunker, plus rifts. It was out of the way, but actually, like, super easy to get kitted up and then just, you know, rotate on to the circle. Like, really, actually, really good spot. It wasn't like the go-to, like, I want to drop a 20 bomb place, but if you're just trying to play a safe game and get lots of kills, that's the spot to go. Luke the Notable had something like a 40% win rate in his video where he dropped Wailing Woods, so that's gotta count for something. Coming in at number 18, we have Happy Hamlet. If you know how to loot this properly, it is one of the best locations in the game. Otherwise, you probably hate it. And at number 17, we have the Factory. It's your boy, the spot everyone wanted to return, most overhyped location ever, coming in, that's right, at 17. It's good, okay? It's like Dusty Depot, but better. Total of 6 chests can spawn here, some pretty decent loot, a lot of pallets, very central location, but not good if there's more than 4 people here. It just doesn't have enough loot. It's got enough to sustain a few people, but a few people and like that's it. They're coming in number 16. I bet this is a spot you weren't expecting to see on the list. We actually have the Floating Island. Floating Island is basically the far superior version of the Meteor. It's a high POI that you can drift down from and go to anywhere you want, which is just amazing for rotating, mobility, and all that stuff. But unlike the Meteor, it actually had quite a bit of loot. The Floating Island was really the only thing I really truly enjoyed about Season 6, but it was a great spot no matter where it was, and I kind of hope it comes back, which I heard it might be. Number 15, Loot Lake. I'm just putting all the Loot Lakes at number 15. Quick speed ranking order. Number 5, Original Loot Lake. Number 4, Bouncy Loot Lake. Number 3, Current Loot Lake. Number 2, Leaky Lake with the whoosh thing in the middle. And at number 1, we have the best loot lake of all time, the post-Butterfly event Loot Lake. It was very open and provided a much different fighting experience from almost any other location in the game. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. At number 14, we have Anarchy Acres, swiftly followed at number 13 with Fatal Fields. Basically the exact same locations as far as materials and loot goes. Fatal's just in a better location. It's close to Salty. Now number 12, we've got Lazy Links. So Lazy Links, I'm starting now to realize, looking back on it, was actually a decent spot. I hated on it because it was so popular, which meant that so many people went there and I never got good loot. But for what it actually was, Lazy was good. About the same as Anarchy, but I would again say slightly better. With lots of ATKs to escape that place, which was nice. And again, pretty good loot. What more could you possibly want? Well, I'll tell you, less people going there. Coming in at our number 11 spot, this is going to be Risky Reels. Probably one of the best outskirt locations in the entire game. It was kind of in the middle of nowheres, but despite being in the middle of nowheres, you would always have so many people drop here. It truly was a great spot with great loot, and you know, the block just kind of ruined it. Block's not even on this list because stupid. Coming in at number 10, the location that in my opinion has had the biggest glow up of 2019. It is the Pressure Plant. Dude, Pressure Plant is so good now. Due to the giant air vent that the robot thing created, it is so easy to get around, which makes 1, looting great, and 2, fighting super strategic and fun. And once you're done doing all that, fly off and go wreak havoc on someone else. It's a great spot. Now coming in at number 9, below Retail Row, that's right, is Mega Mall. Like Retail Row, well, it is Retail Row, but worse. At number 8, we have Paradise Palms, the Tilted Towers of the South. Paradise Palms is a great location. I mean, I think there is no denying that it is one of the best spots in the game. High player count, tons of loot, and rifts to get out of there and move on to your next location. I will be honest, it was better when you had more vehicles there, but still, I mean, there is no denying that Paradise Palms is one of the best places in the game. Now, number 7, we've got my, I think, personal favorite spot in Fortnite, maybe, Dusty Divot. Okay. Probably the easiest place to leave with 999 wood besides Wailing Woods. And it's in the middle of the map. Now the divot itself maybe only had mediocre loot, but because the old Dusty Depot was part of this location, it actually had really great loot. I mean, it was basically 2 POIs stuck together, and it was also the most amazing safe haven of all time. If you're low on anything, you're just injured, go to Dusty Divot. Very hard for people to see you in there. Even if they are also in there, you can get stocked up on wood and find some mushrooms and get up to 100 shield. And I'm so happy that Dusty Depot and especially Factory are back, but I do truly miss this one as well. Coming in at number 6, we have the Puebla Village. Oh yeah, you know what I'm talking about. The spot that has the most chests per capita in any location in Fortnite history. Yeah, that one. I mean, that's literally it. This place just had an amazing loot pool with so many chests. And then that's pretty much it. Not a great location, to be honest, but you got a lot of people going there. The loot was insane, and that really, truly just made it worth it. Okay, we're down to our top 5. And at number 5, we have Greasy Grove. Greasy Grove will forever be part of the great OG4 but it's always going to come last in that competition. Amazing loot, but slightly worse than the other 3 spots we're about to look at. Basically on the outskirts of the map, but not really close to anything else at its time. It was a great spot, but as far as the originals went, I think it's the worst of the 4. And at number 4, we have Pleasant Park, the Greasy Grove of the North. Pleasant Park was about as far off from everything as Greasy Grove, but just had more loot, more houses, you know, like, and you just can't really compete with that. They were actually very similar locations if you think about it, just with the slightly different layouts, but I think the loot makes Pleasant Park the better drop. So that leaves us with 3 spots. And coming in at number 3, we have Salty Springs. I think a lot of people might fight for Salty being above Retail, but in my opinion, Salty is slightly worse. Now, they're pretty much tied when it comes to amount of players that would drop there. Even more tied when it came to just location, but Retail wins on loot. I mean, Salty is an absolute cluster when you're going there in any sort of game mode, and that can be good or bad. But in my opinion, Retail gets almost the same amount of people with more loot per person. So I don't know, I just always felt more safe going to Retail, despite them being obviously very, very similar and equal locations. Which is going to take us to our number 1 spots, Tilted Towers. In the ranking video I did asking you guys, it basically was a 3-way tie between these 3, and I'm just kind of reorganizing them in my own opinion. There was a reason that Tilted usually had 30 people land there, because it was the best spot in the game.
There's 4 guys, yeah boy, easy kills. Kills, boys.
Easy to get tons of kills, very central, and at the end of the day, just so much loot. It's a spot I miss, and I hope does come back one day, but who knows? Anyways, though, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to be our video for the day. Thank you so much for watching. If you guys did enjoy, feel free to leave a like, as well as subscribe to the channel, and I'll talk to you guys later. That's it. Peace out, you freaking nerds.